I'm going to take you into now a different habitat again. And like so many of the habitats, it crosses over. So this is, I suppose, a bit of a crossover between a woodland and a marsh. This is wet woodland. And again, I'm not going to go into the detail of every single type, but here I've got a lot of willow trees in a very wet, marshy area. There is actually a conifer in there that's managed to find its way in, but this will be wet much of the year. And these willow love this sort of habitat. You quite often find this up here in this sort of hill area. You can see here there's soft rush as well, but you can also find it low down. So the Norfolk Broads has got an awful lot of this willow and alder. Alder is the other tree that you'll often find in these wet habitats. A willow and alder carr is what it's often known as. A willow alder carr is a marshy area, often very peaty soils, holds water much of the year, never really completely dry out unless it's an unbelievably dry summer, which, yes, we have had a few recently. And they provide a rich habitat. Willow supports willow is the second best tree for supporting large numbers of insects, second only to oak in our native tree species. So it's a really important tree for insects, and these habitats, because they're full of insects, because there's moisture, because there's all the different plants as well, are really important for many bird species, not only for nesting but also for feeding. Important scrubby habitat, so it's that mix, a bit like a scrub. So it's that kind of boundary space between open marsh, between woodland and the closed canopy of woodland, maybe grassland areas around as well. So quite a mixture of, if you like, different habitats kind of colliding in this space. But alder carr and willow carr, or alder willow carr, whatever, these spaces are kind of wet woodland. Fox, probably. Either remnants of pine marten or fox. The other thing that's important here is saying about the bird species, you'll often find the early migrant birds coming back at the beginning of the spring from overseas, coming to these habitats. We're just starting to get some of them coming back. In fact, somebody was saying to me they'd heard a chiff-chaff the other day, which is one of those species. I'm just going to walk through here because you get more of a view, and you can see we get into an area of open water and a pond habitat, which is again another one of those habitats that's really, really valuable. And unfortunately, so many bodies of water like ponds have been lost because they've been filled in or they've been drained. They're no longer used in the way that they were. This pond is not like some of the ponds in lowland areas where you'll get the classic sort of reeds, bulrushes and the Phragmites reeds that are so well known on places like the Broads. Here we've got the soft rush. But these ponds are really important along with the wet woodland because these are rich for insects, really important food source, and obviously things like newts and toads and frogs, so on, are using these as breeding grounds, but also the dragonflies and other species. Dragonflies are interesting. They have a kind of, it almost looks like a little mini dragon, the animal when it's in its young stages, and then it crawls out and as it develops through its stages, it develops its wings, it comes out and it'll crawl out, dry the new wings off on while it's sitting on one of these reeds, and then once it's dry it'll fly off. It moves through these instars, these stages of its life. In the early stages it's living in a little encased that it makes its own in the water. It's not a flying animal at all. It's only when it gets older that it becomes moves and transitions, if you like, transforms itself into this flying insect. Amazing things. And there's a lot of those kinds of stories to do with the insects and that live within these important aquatic environments. So here we've got another example of both pond and wetland habitats. This is a nice pond. All of these ponds and waterways I'm going to show you now are artificial. They were actually built to catch the water that came off the road when they built a small bypass. And interestingly, when they were digging for the road, they found an old wood henge, so like Stonehenge but made of wood. Anyway, they were digging and they needed a place for the water runoff to go, so they made these wetland areas. So they're great, artificial, but these have been here now quite some time. Got a really nice pond habitat here with, you can see where the bulrushes are. They'll be coming up again soon. We've got the irises, the yellow, beautiful yellow flag irises. You can see the green flattened leaves of those coming up around the edge of the pond. And then behind we can see a patch of wet woodland. There's some lovely strange shaped willows in there. So we've got this wonderful mix of habitats in here. Bit of wet woodland, bit of marsh, bit of pond. This is what you often find, particularly where people have been involved in so many ways in influencing and affecting them. It's another little patch of wet ground, small lake. This one's artificial as well, part of another drainage scheme with the road and railway. But there's a coot out there on the water. There's a nice bed of bulrushes at the back. Obviously most of the reeds are still just starting to emerge again. And in another couple of months this will all be reed beds and bulrushes and the open water in the middle. So ponds are a great opportunity really for us to bring wildlife back in really quite quickly. They colonise incredibly easily. I've actually dug a couple of good sized ponds on my own land, and we had them pretty much looking like a pond that had been there for many years within 2-3 years, including having newts and things in them, which is great. You can see, look at that, isn't that beautiful? These reed beds will be back again soon. Just die back every winter, and then spring and into early summer they're back again and rich with growth, rich with new nutrients being brought up, and lots for the birds to feed in, nest in, insects to thrive on. It's such rich habitats. There you are, ponds and lakes.